Hello, I'm Kads, and welcome to today's video. I hope you all had a lovely holiday and a happy new year. This is of course still 2024 when I'm recording this, but it should be 2025 by the time this video goes live. So, happy new year! And in the spirit of the new year, I had decided fairly recently that I wanted to refresh and reorganize all of my arena teams in the arena menu to be a little bit more catered to what I tend to occur on auto in both classic and tag team arena. So we're going to take a look through all of the teams that I use at least on a semi-regular basis, talk about why they're comprised that way, and of course show a few of them in action. All right, so here we are in the arena menu so we can take a look through all of my saved team presets. I will note that all of my teams are aptly named, so if you have any further questions about any of these particular compositions, feel free to leave that name in the comment section down below with whatever your question might be. So for starters, we have the classic main team, which is the team I use to just auto farm classic arena majority of the time, presuming there's no shenanigans going on with the enemy team. There's no stone skin, it's just a one-man defense or a really squishy champion or something like that. So that's the team that I send. We just have a standard cleave team, Arbiter, Control with Cornelia, Buff Strip with Madame Saris, decreased defense and decreased attack, and then nuke him down with Genbo. Notably, he can ignore Swift Parry, and he's also Void Affinity, so we don't have to worry about affinity issues on auto. But arguably, the team I use even more than that in Classic Arena to auto farm is the team I'm calling Chemotherapy, because I do believe that Stone Skin is a cancer in the game. So we do have Speed up with Arbiter, we have HP Burn Explosion with the Gizmac, and then we have Block Revive, which is typically in there because there's a lot of Wukongs and UDK combos in the game. And so this combination gets rid of the Stone Skin and also softens up the Wukong such that Foley can come in with the AoE and block the revive, so I don't have to worry about him. And then we're filling in with Narcisse as the secondary nuker in case there's any wrong affinity matchups, there's any reaction or anything like that. He just hits significantly harder and he's Void Affinity. The next segment here is kind of like my tag team arena focus teams that I kind of use on auto to fight single man defenses, and we'll see these a little bit later. But I have my TTA alternative speed, and essentially this team is comprised of a bunch of champions that are not featured in any of the other teams, such that it can be unique and separate for quickly farming these single man teams. And it's just meant to be a pretty much, again, a standard cleave team. We have speed boost from Lady Kimmy, we have increased attack from Jorg, we have decreased defense from Deacon, and then the same nuking strategy with the Genbo. I also have a go second team with Harima here. It's structured such that Kyoko, whenever she's attacked, kind of like a Seeker, she'll spread increased defense out, and so that I don't have to necessarily worry about having to put up increased defense on my Harima in case the enemy team has like some sort of lockout or something like that. I have my Star Sage Galathir in there, just get kind of the ultimate support, protection, cleansing, healing, etc. I have an increased defense champion in case we're not locked out, Wither the Crown to pair with her, to pair with Harima. Then of course Harima comes in as the big DPS for this squad. Third on the list is what I call the anti-Armands team. So we have Mithrala in the lead to be the bait for the sheep skill of Armands. When he is on auto, he's going to target the lead of your team, and so I have the lead of the team being the person on my account with the highest effective resistance because of Mithrala's passive, of course. She's also in charge of cleansing off the stun that presumably would hit everyone else on the team because they probably don't have enough resistance for an Armands. Then once she cleanses it, we have Lady Kimmy again just to provide increased accuracy, increased speed, turn meter fill. Lydia's coming in there for decreased defense and weaken, but most importantly the weaken. And then we just bomb with Nishak because typically Armands are in stone skin, and it's just annoying if we happen to go first. I'd rather just have him die to the bombs instead of having to wait with the nuker just hitting into stone skin. And then lastly, from the tag team arena speed farming cluster, we have Bomb Voyage, which is just a pretty standard bomb team. Arbiter in there for the increased attack. Mikage in there changes forms and places increased accuracy, but also strips off the enemy buffs in case there's anything out there like block debuffs. Basher comes in with the increased accuracy boost from Mikage, locks them all out for a couple of turns, and then we place the bombs with the Guys the Gleeful. The lockout is there so that in case they happen to have a cleanser on the team, they're not going to be able to cleanse, and so even if they're in stone skin, meaning they cannot be slept by Gaius, it doesn't really matter. They're still going to die when their second turn comes around and the bombs go off. And then below that, we have a lot more of the niche teams that are kind of situational in use. So starting off with Remain 2, which is another team that I typically use in Classic Arena, but this is for teams where I know I'm going to go first. I suspect that they probably don't have stone skin, or I'm just kind of risking it for the biscuit with the double buff strip. But more importantly, I'm just trying to get rid of any annoying passives that I don't want to deal with, and then I just have King Narcisse as the janitor here to clean everything up. I have a go second bomb team, and you'll see the same format a couple of times with Nishak down here as well. But essentially, this is a team where they don't have a block debuffs champion. They go first, they do whatever they do. We're protected by Nekret, or Gaius is protected by Nekret. Vogoth is there for AoE attack protection as well. Mithrala is in there to resist anything that they might do, buff strips and whatnot. We can cleanse it off, and also increase attack for the bombers. And then we just apply the bombs and wait for them to die after they have gone first. Bomb Voyage 2 is just like the first iteration of the team, except we're dropping out the Basher and putting in Nekret to protect Nishak, just because I've had it happen way too many times, where Nishak will take his first turn, place all the bombs, someone will counterattack like a Lydia, placing a Fear, or UDK, placing a Provoke, and he doesn't get the second turn to reduce the bomb duration to 1 turn. It gets cleansed off, and then we just lose the fight. And I want these to be relatively seamless when I apply them for auto farming in whatever form of arena I'm working on. So Necret is in there to protect him from any counterattack, including nukers who might just one-shot Nishak because he's not built to take a hit. This is the other Go Second bomb team, except we swapped out Gaius for Nishak, and I basically use them interchangeably depending on the affinity of the enemy. So if there's a bunch of Force champions, I'm going to run Nishak over Gaius and vice versa. Bomb Voyage 3 is basically the same thing as 1, except we're using Lord Chazar instead of Gaius, and this is again just for affinity's sake. If there's a mix of like Spirit and Force champions where Gaius might weak hit on some of them, then I'd opt for Lord Chazar, but he's notably a weaker bomber, but nonetheless he can definitely work. It depends on the team, but I'm also depending on the fact that Basher is going to lock them out, so if anyone happens to survive the first onslaught of bombs, then we can just kind of A1 them down with everyone else. We have another version of the Go Second team that we've seen before, except that in this case we have a Rhodos in there instead of a bomber. Same thing, we have the protection for the nuker. The team is allowed to take a couple of hits, but then they go afterward and Rhodos just starts killing everybody. Rounding out the bottom, we have the Sundown team, which I did a fun video on. You can check that one out in the card up above, but essentially this is to deal with a lot of those teams that just have a UDK and a Wukong together, the super cheese composition, and so this is tuned to be able to beat that on auto, provided that I do click on Wukong just to target him with the ally attack. Gizmak is in the team just because I want to ensure that the Wukong has some sort of debuff on him in case he might be in Stone Skin too. My Fanax is strong enough that his A1 will actually break the Stone Skin on the first hit and then kill the Wukong on the second hit, so I don't really have to worry about that. But if the Wukong is actually in Stone Skin, then he won't necessarily have a debuff on, so he won't get the second hit from the Fanax, and so the irresistible burn on the passive from Gizmak ensures that no matter what, unless he's under immunity, we're going to be able to get the 2 hits and make sure that he dies afterward. And then of course Nishak is in there once again to be the bomber to kill the UDK after we kill the Wukong. Below that we have a couple of teams that are designed to counter Tormund whenever he's like the solo champion on the team. We have the fast version where we have Cards of the Rye being the immunity cleanser for the team, so that after Lady Kemi does her boosting, we can cleanse off all the freezes and or leeches in case Harvest Despair is on the enemy Tormund. We have the decreased defense and weaken from Lydia, but also the block revive on the passive so that when Tormund dies, he doesn't come back to life and it's just a little bit smoother. And then we have the bombs from Lord Chazar. Below that, we have another variation of an anti-Tormund team. We have Lydia in there again for the block revive passive, as well as the weaken to strengthen our bombs. We have Nishak in the team protected by Necret and Vogoth. And primarily, I restructured both of these teams just because a lot of Tormunds nowadays are being run in 2-piece stone or 6-piece stone skin. So he's just there to stall while the other people on the team do something else. And some people leave him in as the or a lead. And so it just, again, is a little bit faster to clear him out because we can just bomb him, blow through the stone skin, and then block the revive with the Lydia. So since we're already here in Tag Team Arena, we might as well start off by showing you guys how I can use these teams to quickly farm some of these one-man teams. This triplet looks like a great victim for our teams. So I generally speaking assume that almost everyone is in stone skin. That's kind of my mindset when it comes to how I structured a lot of these teams. You can see there's a lot of bombs going on and very little like raw nukage, just because again I suspect that everyone is in stone skin. So in this case, we're going to send the Armand's team to counter the Armands. We're going to send the bombs into presumably the stone skin and probably pinpoint on the Gurgo, and then doesn't really matter with the Arbiter. We're just going to send in the Goseka team with Harima in there. The good thing about the Harima team is that Harima typically doesn't get polymorphed, and so this is typically the team I'll send in if their enemy is in polymorph or a lot of polymorph, and I don't expect them to be in a lot of stone skin. Sometimes they still are in stone skin, and I just kind of wait it out and let it run its course on auto. But you can see there, Arbiter, pretty easy work. We just kind of take her down with Harima. He was in, I guess, a Feral set, maybe? I'm not sure what the guy's in. But yeah, we bomb him. I guess the Basher even got the kill. There's the stone skin on the Armands. He does the stun. He stuns everyone. We tank the sheep with Mithrala. We cleanse it off. And then we start to cut in. We bomb him, put him in the dirt. So there you go, anti-Armands. If you want to counter him on auto, Mithrala is a very, very good way to do that by putting her in the lead position. We might as well do another one here. Maybe we can show how I typically go against a Wukong. So I usually send the bomb team against a Wukong just because, again, I assume that he's in stone skin. Most people don't run Wukongs in stone skin, but some do, and so I want to be prepared if that happens. I don't want to send a nuker, not have Madame Sarah strip it off, and then we just die to a Wukong one-man defense. We don't need bombs for a Lysandra, so we're going to send the alt speed team, and then presumably this is a super fast +2 Kaimar, so he's going to sleep us. Maybe we might get a weak hit because we have a lot of force affinity, or maybe we resist it with Galathir and we can cleanse, but we'll see. Doesn't really matter one way or the other, but eventually we are just going to be able to kill him. So we got resist with the Galathir, and then we cleansed off the sleep, and then there we go down with the Kymar. Doesn't really matter if this Lysandra goes first because we're just going to cut in afterward and do this. Standard cleave team, taking her out. Boom, quick farm. You can see we're just making quick work of these one-man teams, and that is primarily what these teams are structured around, or at least this cluster of teams is structured around. Everything else is structured around the teams that I typically see in the Classic Arena and the Tag Team Arena. But when it comes to like a reset on Sunday nights for Tag Team Arena, I typically design and curate my teams to fight the actual teams that are closer to reset. So the point here is to farm all of these one-man teams as quickly as possible. As you can see, we did all 3 teams in under 30 seconds, and I am a purveyor of this strategy where I just have easy one-man defenses so that people can farm me as well. Typically stay in the red for majority of the week, and then just come in here every day and farm as many of these one-mans as I possibly can. Switching over to Classic Arena, let's see if we can find some victims here. I do think I have a perfect situation for the Sundown team, so we're going to send that one after this. This is literally the team it is exactly designed to counter. So we're going to have the irresistible, unblockable HP burn. We're going to ally attack on the Wukong. I do have to click him in this team just to make sure, because sometimes the Wukong isn't the lead. Typically ally attacks will go for the lead, but I don't like to leave it up to chance. I like to guarantee what's going to happen there. So we block revive on the Wukong, and then we bomb the Stone Skin on the UDK. Technically we're fast enough in that case to actually blow it up with the HP burn activation, but that's not necessarily always the case. Sometimes the UDK is super slow, and we end up just waiting for the Stone Skin to blow up to the bombs. But again, 14 seconds, super quick farm, even for this annoying cheesy team. A quick page refresh, and we have a couple more teams that we can showcase our stuff against. So this is a Georgia team. I do expect that he's going to be in Stone Skin, so I am going to send a bomb team, and specifically this bomb team because counterattacks can be deadly from a Georgid, but if he counterattacks Gaius because of his passive, he's just going to die and blow up the bombs immediately, so it's not the end of the world, and in fact it would make it faster if he did counterattack on the Gaius. No luck there, but yep, he attacks him with the A1, 11 seconds, easy farm, Georgia down. So we're not afraid of Stone Skin. In fact, we actively seek it out because I'm so ready for it. This is just a simple one-man defense, so we're not going to worry about it. We don't need to send anything heavy. We're just going to send in the quick standard cleave team. So we come in there with the sleep, the AoE buff strip, and then the nuke. Quick 7-second farm. And I do like this team because the 2 support, the 2 debuffers on the team don't actually touch the enemy, so we don't have to worry about them waking up or doing anything, counterattacking and whatnot, and it's just a little bit safer overall. We have an Armon's team in here. It doesn't matter if the Arbiter is paired with them, we can still send this team because there's no DPS to worry about. So it might take a little bit longer just because they're going to be a little bit faster with the Arbiter in the team, but the premise is the same. So he's going to, oh, we got the 3%. That's unfortunate. 3% resist, but we also happened to get lucky and Nishak got a weak hit, so he didn't get stunned or his turn meter stolen, and we got to place the bombs. So this is an unfortunate circumstance that can happen. There's always a 3% chance that Armons will land the sheep debuff anyways, but in most cases, 97% of the time, I guess, he won't land it just because my Mithrala has like effectively 1,000 resistance. So, but nonetheless, that's a good example of that can happen every once in a while. So just be prepared in case you build a team like the one that I have. And then lastly, we'll just show you the chemotherapy team. This team is probably not actually in Stone Skin, but maybe Python might be, maybe Mithrala might be. I don't really know, but again, that's just my overwhelming assumption. So we're going to prepare as if that is the case, and we're going to be prepared with the block revive as well. So no, they are just in bolster. Not a big deal. Approach is still the same. AoE attack. Doesn't really matter if Foley doesn't kill anyone else. His main job there is to kill the Wukong. That is why he's on the team. Narcisse is the primary nuker to really kill everyone else, and presumably if there was any Stone Skin, we would burn it off with the Gizmak. So like I said, the rest of the teams are there and they are used, but they're more niche in situations, and those teams that I highlighted are the ones that I primarily send against majority of the teams that I face in Tag Team Arena farming and Classic Arena farming. As an added bonus, I'll quickly run through some of the builds on the champions featured on some of the teams, but if you have a question on the build for a champion that I did not actually showcase in a team today, but you may have saw on one of the team compositions, once again, leave a comment down below asking about that particular team composition, and I'll be happy to provide that information in a reply. So starting from the bottom here, let's kick it off with Old Hermit Jorg, who's just in some leftover throwaway pieces of speed gear. He doesn't really need need to be the fastest champion on my account. He's typically sent against one-man defenses, so I expect them to either go first or I happen to go first. Doesn't really matter one way or the other, but he just needs to be fast enough or go in order such that he's faster than the nukers. So if we look at his total stats, 50,000 on the HP, 3,000-ish on the defense, 272 on the speed. Don't really care about anything else. So he's just a speed bot to make sure that we go in order. Next up, we have Deacon Armstrong, who has been demoted and demoted over time in terms of gear quality, but I've gotten better champions over the years, but I digress. He's in double speed and perception, so he has relatively high stats. We do want him to land his decreased defense more often than not, but it is nothing insane compared to some of my more hardcore champions. 60,000 on the HP, 3,700 on the defense, 271 on the speed. So a little bit slower than Jorg, but just kind of make sure they're around the same speed such that no one gets cut in on when we're running them together. 487 on the accuracy. Whether the Crowned is in a shield set with divine speed. That's primarily for Ice Golem. That is where I use her in terms of PvE, but in PvP, the shield set is just nice to also tank some of the damage for us, provided they don't have some sort of buff strip on their team. Total stats here, 102,000 on the HP, 2,300-ish on the defense, 262 on the speed, and then 533 on the resistance. Nothing crazy high there, but enough to resist some things in some arena situations, and definitely enough to resist things in PvE situations. Next up, we have Kyoku, who's in a Guardian set. She's basically just a tank for damage, and whenever she gets a turn, she puts herself under block of damage, so the Guardian set is fully negating any damage or some damage from my allies, so it just, again, helps her soak up some of the damage on behalf of other people. Total stats, 72,000 on the HP, almost 4,000 on the defense, 217 on the speed. Didn't really care too much about her speed in particular, but just fast enough so she does get some turns over the course of some of the fights. And she's in percentage boots. That's why it's a little bit on the lower end compared to some of the other champions we'll see. A little bit of indexing into resistance, 423, and a little bit of indexing into accuracy at 234. Next up, we have my primary defensive-based nuker on my account, my lovely Harima in lethal and killstroke with a bunch of ascended gear. So you can see where a lot of my efforts have been focused. 48,000 on the HP, almost 7,000 on the attack, 252 on the speed, full crit rate, and 352 on the crit damage. Don't really care about the accuracy or resistance. Super, super fun to use her in a lot of situations. Next up, we have Star Sage Galather, who's in a mix of gear, resistance, and accuracy. 2P stone skin for the resistance set, as well as the perception set. His total stats are as follows: 84,000 on the HP, 3,300 on the defense. I wish both of those were a little bit higher, but that's probably just lacking a blessing compared to some of the other champions you've already seen. 307 on the speed, so fairly quick, but not anything crazy. And then lots of resistance, almost 700 on the resistance, although I'd like that to be even higher if possible. The higher, the better. Next up, we have Fanax, my favorite epic damage dealer in the entire game, also in a lethal set. Ignore the protection, that's just a random one set or one-off piece. 43,000 on the HP, 6,400 on the attack, 2,500 on the defense, 266 on the speed, so he is fairly quick himself, just so we can cut in and start destroying people with the A1. Full crit rate, almost 300% on the crit damage, and then a little bit of accuracy. He doesn't actually have an accuracy banner, but just with all the empowerment and the blessing and whatnot, it pushes him up such that he has enough accuracy for like a challenge tournament when you have to use epics only and stuff like that, or faction wars for replacing the block buffs. Next up, we have Basher in kind of like a warlord-esque Yumiko build, pretending that I have both of those champions, perception and speed. So he's built fairly quick, 51,000 on the HP, 3,300 on the attack. Granted, he's not built to do damage. 266 on the defense, 300 almost on the speed. So he's kind of in tune with Arbiter in most cases. And then 650 on the accuracy to make sure that he can land his lockout ability. Next up, we have Gaius the Gleeful in my second best attack-based bomber gear and triple perception. His total stats are as follows: 43,000 on the HP, almost 8,000 on the attack, 255 on the speed, so middling of the road speed, but fast enough to go with some of my faster teams, and then 676 on the accuracy. My Lady Mikage is one of my most powerful and fastest champions on my account as well. Double speed and perception. She stole a bunch of gear from Lady Cammy, a little bit of feral, a little bit of reaction as well. Her total stats are as follows: 75,000 on the HP, 4,000 on the defense, 355 on the speed, and then accuracy is up there at 584. So definitely indexing more into speed, but she has a serviceable amount of accuracy as well, especially when she ignores some resistance because she's a mythical, as well as having increased accuracy on the alternative form. Beside her, we have Genbo, the Dishonored, who finally got an upgrade into a Savage set. He was in Cruel and Double Cruel for a very, very long time, but he's finally upgraded into Savage with one piece of Merciless. 40,000 on the HP, 6.7k on the attack, 216 on the speed, so he's fairly slow. That was the trade-off I had to make in order to put him in the Savage hybrid set. But because he's typically ran on my cleave teams, he either goes in order after all the turn meter fills from everyone else, or he goes on a target that has been slept and stripped by Madame Saris and Cornelia, such that they miss their turn anyways. 72% on the crit rate because he provides his own increased crit rate buff, 272 on the crit damage, and we don't care about the accuracy or the resistance. Speaking of the other epics from the cleave team, we have Cornelia, who's basically in a build identical to Basher, although Basher has slightly better gear overall, I believe. The base stats kind of vary, and that's why their speed will vary a little bit here, but 60,000 on the HP, 3,500 on the defense, 296 on the speed, and then 658 on the accuracy. Next to her is my primary Madame Saris. I do have two built ones in immunity, but I rarely use her, but she is there if I need her in that case against like a Torment or something. But triple perception as well. We want her to be as accurate as possible. 64,000 on the HP, 3,300 on the defense, 243 on the speed, and then 800 on the accuracy, with an accuracy chest, as you might suspect. Next up, we have Lady Kimmy, who's got like leftover perception gear and speed gear. She's, like I said, she's been stripped for the pursuit of Lady Mikage, but speed and double perception is the build with a little bit of feral. 66,000 on the HP, 3,200 on the defense, 323 on the speed, so still fairly quick, but definitely not one of my fastest champions anymore, and then 593 on the accuracy. Next up, we have Liddy, who was recently rebuilt to improve her accuracy relative to the Chimera clan boss. So double perception and resistance in the set. So 73,000 on the HP, 3,300 on the defense, 269 on the speed. This is a precise speed because she's still used in my existing Demon Lord clan boss team, but I have created a new one, so stay tuned for a showcase of that down the road. But once she's free of that team, we can probably be more flexible with her speed in terms of all the gear pieces. 454 on the resistance. That's primarily because I do run her against the Eternal Dragon. I don't want her skills locked out because she is the primary debuffer for that squad. And then, like I said, rebuilt her to have enough accuracy to be able to land her debuffs against Ultra Nightmare Chimera clan boss. Nishak has my best bomber gear on the account. You can tell by all of the ascensions and whatnot. Triple perception, just like Geist, but the stats are a little bit better. 48,000 on the HP, 7,300 on the attack, 275 on the speed, so good bit faster than Geist, and then 687 on the accuracy. Next to him is my Mithrala, one of my favorite builds on my entire account, but we have her in Untouchable and Perception. The Untouchable is so that she cannot get bombed even if a champion has increased accuracy on, like Stone Skin, for example. Triple reaction as well, so she barely ever gets crit, which is super fun. 73,000 on the HP, almost 5,000 on the defense, 280 on the speed, and then 720 on the accuracy, 279 on the resistance, so effectively just around 1,000 effective resistance when you combine both of those together. Next up, we have my Foley, who's in immunity and speed, and that is primarily in case he has to go against a Torment, who I also use him to block revive on Torments in variations of the chemotherapy team you saw. We don't want him to get frozen or otherwise CC'd in pursuit of that block revive. So total stats on him, 45,000 on the HP, 6,400 on the attack, 246 on the speed, notably just a little bit faster than Narcisse, as we'll see a little bit later. Full crit rate and 241 on the crit damage. Next up, we have my Arbiter in her quintessential speed build with Divine Speed twice and then the speed set. I recently tweaked her a little bit because I got a better piece in Divine Speed than the normal speed set, so I increased her speed by about like 10 or so, which is pretty substantial in terms of speed. 80,000 on the HP, 3,300-ish on the defense, 377 on the speed, 350 on the resistance, and then 300 on the accuracy, as much as I could muster in either one of those stats. Next up, we have White King Narcisse, my best HP-based nuker on my account in a lethal set with one piece of Stone Skin for the extra HP and broken sets. 98,000 on the HP, 3,100 on the defense, 242 on the speed, full crit rate, 331 on the crit damage. Again, you can definitely tell who are the primary nukers on my account based on the quality of their stats. And then we don't care about his accuracy or his resistance. And then last but not least, we have Gizmak the Terrible, Mr. Anti-Stone Skin himself, also in a lethal set with one piece of Stone Skin for the extra HP. He's arguably in my second best lethal set for an HP-based nuker, a little bit of reaction as well on the ring. 77,000 on the HP. I think it's a little bit higher in form too. 2,700 on the defense, 259 on the speed, full crit rate, 222 on the crit damage, and notably 463 on the accuracy. I chose to index a lot into accuracy because, like I said, I do use them a lot to counter a lot of the Stone Skin that is rampant in the arena, and a lot of people are running Polymorph, but thankfully they're running Polymorph on their support, so they don't have a lot of accuracy. So I wanted enough resistance so that most cases, even if it's on someone who has a little bit of accuracy, we have enough resistance that he does not get sheeped at the start of the fight, and thus can actually do his job and get rid of all the Stone Skin. Plus, I do also use him in some PvE encounters, and having a relatively high amount of resistance means that he's not susceptible to CC and anything like that, so he can do his job there about activating a 2 burns as well. All right, so that's going to do it for this snapshot of my arena teams that I used to quickly farm Tag Team Arena as well as the Classic Arena in the year 2025. Let me know in the comment section down below if you run any similar teams on your account, or let me know if I inspired you to build a team similar to one of the ones you saw here, showcased or otherwise. I know I didn't show all the masteries for all these champions, but it is safe to assume that for the nukers, they all go down to Helm Smasher, and for a lot of these supports, they either go down to Eagle Eye or Unshakable, depending if they need more accuracy or resistance in their builds. As always, if you did find this video helpful, then be sure to hit that like button down below, and also feel free to hit the subscribe button if you are enjoying the content on this channel for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.